I like to say it's this constant yin yang between fun and frustration. One moment it's super fun, the next moment it can be frustrating. And the thing that as entrepreneurs we have to learn to deal with is when they both happen at the same exact time.
Ian, welcome aboard, man. I'm happy to have you today. And I'm really looking forward to learning about, the Fulcrum Group, how you guys got started and what you're into. So with that, kind of just tell us about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Gail. As mentioned earlier, my name is Ian Hameroff. I am founder and CEO of Fulcrum Group. We are a B2B tech marketing firm who works exclusively with growing and, more importantly, fast growing B2B tech product companies. And our services help them stand out, resonate, and break through to the audiences they want to reach. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do and our mission is to really bridge the gap between the great innovations they're creating and the people they want to sell those innovations to. And we deliver that through the product marketing and go-to-market strategy consulting services that my team and I provide our clients.
So how did you end up landing on like B2B tech companies?
Well, they tell early stage authors, write what you know or write what you've been or write what you've done. That's what I did for 2 decades. I was a B2B product marketing person, and I had helped run that function at companies large and small over those 20 years. I'd also skirted both on the product side as well as other parts of the marketing portfolio. But really, at the end of the day, I'm a B2B tech product marketer. So it made a lot of sense to put my focus on that as our primary area of where we know, we understand, we talk to talk, and we appreciate the challenges.
So what was there a time though where you thought, I'm tired of working with these people, I kind of want to go do something else, and you flirted with some of the other girls?
No, I think one of the great things about going from being on the inside and running that function for a singular company and then starting a tech marketing firm like I did with Fulcrum is you really get exposed to such a variety of different domains, products, people, audiences. While there's some common themes that will always be the same in B2B tech, particularly the sales motions, the challenges that exist in trying to reach the right audience members, the right participants in the buying committee, and the long sales cycles that can happen. Just the chance to get exposed to such a variety of different technology spaces really scratches that itch. I like to say, one of the cool things about what we do is we work with a lot of traditional SaaS companies, development tool companies, productivity companies, marketing platform companies. And I even have a client who's in the business of preventing Legionnaire's disease. So it's like you wake up every morning and you get a chance to really get exposed to new and interesting things. And particularly working with growth stage companies. These are folks who are on the precipice, right? Who are trying to bring new disruptive technologies into the market. So while not all of them will ultimately be the thing that becomes the radical change that we'll experience, it is really cool to work closely with those organizations that they're really trying to shift into the next gear and accelerate their go-to-market.
We were talking earlier about your methodology and your process, and you sort of hit on this. You're talking about these people that are in growth stage, and these are entrepreneurs, and you and I know that as entrepreneurs, patience is not typically one of our God-given virtues. And so how do you juxtapose this idea of we need to go through this process and methodology and be very intentional with this person who is not those things typically, right?
Well, I think we have to exercise patience on behalf of our clients sometimes. But I think one of the reasons why they're bringing us in to begin with is that they have stumbled upon a challenge that they just don't feel like that they can tackle on their own. And what they may have been doing before, which I like to call random acts of marketing, aren't necessarily resulting in the outcomes that they believe they would. So often when clients engage with us, they're super hungry for a better way. While I'll argue nothing that you and I do with our respective businesses, someone couldn't Google. Why they work with us is because of our processes, because of our people who help drive those processes and our past experience of doing these repeatedly. Now, that doesn't mean we're draconian and we force every client to go through the exact same steps each time. I mean, there are times where we sometimes regret not having taken those steps because it might make something a little bit longer than it should have been. But I think one of the reasons why we have such a high touch and long-standing relationship with some of our clients is we go in the trenches with them, and then we bring along our expertise. And we like to say we're a reality-based marketer. We understand the reality of being a step removed, but we're able to get smart enough on their product, their space, and their audiences to be that good sparring partner with them. So yeah, it can be challenging at times, but also often that's where the fun exists too, is figuring out how to pick the right locks as you go along the way.
You brought up the random acts of marketing, which that can stem from a lot of places for a lot of reasons, but it's definitely a true thing. One of, I find that when you try to do something that's going to last for a long time, that's going to have, an impact, oftentimes it's sort of like exercise, or it's like an investment, right? It takes time and it takes consistency, right? So how are you able to balance the quick wins, right? Because clients sort of need some of that immediate gratification with this idea of long-term sustained, gradual growth.
I mean, I think you nailed it, right? It's a balancing act that exists between, scratching the itches that are right in front of you and also helping them put in place things that are going to be foundations on which they can grow from. And I think we do a pretty decent job balancing those two. One of the primary ways we engage with our clients is our offering we call product marketing as a service. And what we do here is basically unlock an instant-on product marketing organization, which for many B2B tech companies is incredibly difficult for themselves to hire, attract, and retain really strong B2B tech product marketing talent. So I like to describe what we do is that light bulb you can instantly screw into that empty socket and immediately illuminates a new perspective on what you're trying to get done. Just us coming in and having the flexibility to act as if we're your team, we can identify what are the near-term things, but also at the same time help structure and put in the right things in place as we go along. We're definitely not one of those organizations that spends a ton of time thinking just about what's the PowerPoint presentation we're going to deliver, but we also recognize that it's important for us to explain to our clients, especially prospective clients, that while a PDF or a PPT might be what in their mind is the deliverable, it's all the work we need to do ahead of that. And that's why we structure our methodology around insight, strategy, enablement, and then execution. But we can't take 6 months to do all of that. So we certainly look within those first 30 days to identify the quick wins. And sometimes they're super low-hanging fruit. Sometimes just our fresh perspective gives us an opportunity to give them insights that they haven't thought about before. Or more often than not, they've got a deadline in the next couple of weeks and they need someone to get in there really quick and help them get it done. And it's really a variety of all those different circumstances.
Yeah, you touched on this, and I think this is such a big thing too. We often forget about this. There's two things that I think a lot of companies miss, which one is marketing and recruiting are tied very closely together. And you don't think you need someone until after you need them, which is then and you should always be recruiting. You should always be, looking at developing that bench. And that's a key component, I think, of any good marketing strategy. And the other thing is that we'll look at sometimes, or, like, let's talk about the internal team. And did they know, are you doing a good job of marketing to people internally? Do they understand? And I like to use that analogy of like, I might, I tell my wife all the time what I do, and she barely knows half of what I do.
I think your point that you made about recruiting and identifying, attracting, recruiting, and retaining talent is really the genesis of why I founded Fulcrum Group. As I said earlier, I had done this for 20 years. My wife is also in the same space as I. So, we have a lot of shared experience and challenge and frustration trying to find really good B2B tech product marketers. And, I've always felt that I had a pretty good eye for identifying that talent and bringing them in at the right levels and developing the right skill sets they need. But the one thing I can never develop is a pure, deep passion for technology. The rest of the mechanics I can help grow and train and develop over time. But, finding those folks who have that sort of magic intersection of the deep passion for technology, strategic and critical thinking and storytelling skills in all in one package was difficult. So when I left my last full-time role as a global vice president of product marketing at an educational technology company in the summer of 2019, I said, you know what? I think there's an opportunity here. I think I want to provide this as a service to clients that would be just like I was when I was at that company, or my wife when she's been at different companies, or others who find themselves in this position where they need this capacity, need this capability, and they need it right now. And that's one of the things we like to say. It's all about helping those marketing and sales leaders get the results they need rapidly without the risk of those random acts of marketing.
Let's talk about some more of those quick wins. What are some other things that you help some of your clients with, or that you've helped clients kind of deliver early on for your client?
I think there are two that have remained relatively consistent, no matter the size of the client, the stage of the client, or where or how or why we've been brought in. I think at first it comes down to our onboarding process. And we have a really well-defined onboarding process, which, again, as you can appreciate, is probably one of the most important steps you can take to ensure long-term, and even if it's a short-term project, long, mid, short, whatever it is, success is getting off the ground running super well. So we've structured a set of workshops and other interactive exercises that we do over about a week and a half that really allows us to get super smart on what they're doing quickly. But at the same time, we kind of hold a mirror up and we have a structured conversation. And in doing that, very often there are quick ahas that are identified by our clients or by us or collaboratively, which allows us to immediately identify, okay, if we deal with that, that's going to give you real value right now. And it may have been something that was super obvious when you take the time to stop and think about it. But as you said earlier, these are go leaders, and they don't have the time necessarily to take a step back and think about this. So I think the structured nature of our rapid onboarding process is a quick win in its own right. The second one is, as part of that onboarding process, we go deep into the market landscape. We talk to customers, we talk to internal folks, and we ourselves can sometimes develop a really nice picture. I wouldn't say sometimes, every time we're developing a really nice picture of important information about the competitive landscape, reasonable alternatives, the health of your customer base. Again, these are all things that these clients believe they're already doing today, and very often they are, but sometimes it's not as up to date, nor as direct as it is communicated to a third party. Where people feel maybe more comfortable being a little bit more candid about their thoughts, or we look again at their competitors or the market landscape and the ecosystem with fresh eyes and different perspectives. So I think the combination of those two things, provide quick wins. Of course, there's other things like, hey, we need a one pager by Thursday. Those are obvious quick wins, but I think those other two are onboarding process and then the insights we can summarize and deliver to them, so they can actually see in our strategy, our insight gathering, our strategy phases, that there's actually value there, and it's not just the PPT or the PDF that comes out at the end of the process.
So, your process, obviously, it's we talked about it's intentional while it's not, you said draconian, but there's kind of a couple parts that I want to focus on because I think they're really important. And one is messaging. You see this with a lot of companies that they're really good at talking about themselves, but not always good at talking about their customers. So how are you able to kind of help companies connect through messaging with their audience?
It's what you just described. More often than not, we will come into an organization and we will find exactly what you described. It will be a very product centric, sometimes overly bearing on the features and functionality. And what we communicate to our clients is, wow, this is great information. You're really putting the burden on your customer, your prospective customer, to do all the calculus to figure out why they should care. And let's just be brutally honest, in B2B sales cycles, they're not going to spend the time. They just don't have the time to do it. Or it'll be too late by the time you get in front of a prospective customer, given how much of the sales journey is both non-linear these days. Several steps take place well before the prospect even reaches out to a vendor. So it's another example of a quick win for us is to be able to say, hey, let's flip this around and let's start from the why they should care. And in doing that, we have to be very clear, why does your organization exist? For whom does it exist for? What is the problem being solved? And why is this better than the reasonable alternatives out there? And again, through our exercises and through our workshops and our approach and methodologies, that is a way that we start flipping it around. And then we say, hey, all this great product truth and these value propositions, they move into a position of becoming the reasons to believe that you are actually able to deliver this better way that they are seeking. Again, a big part of what we do, especially early days, is this literally flipping that script around. And we say, hey, your customers should never have to ask nor have to figure out on their own why they should care. It should be evident.
In a lot of cases, these are the hard part is that most companies are largely anonymous, right? And a lot of that has to do part of these random acts of, marketing that exist, or they're just not consistent enough with it. But the thing about marketing, there's elements of timing that come into play, and there's elements of, that consistency of connection and making sure you're saying the right thing to the right person. And it's, if there were a guarantee to say, oh, I just turn on this light switch and the lead bucket, just starts overflowing. Like, I wish that were the case, but, ultimately, we have to make sure that we're connecting with that audience.
And, I think the challenge is getting even more challenging, with the onslaught of generative AI, that it becomes incredibly easy with very low overhead and not a lot of work involved to generate a lot of content and materials and messaging and touch points. What core to our value proposition is about creating authentic connections at every stage along the buyer's journey. That doesn't mean that AI is the enemy here. Not at all. If anything, it's going to be creating a need for our prospective customers, our customers, to want to have more human touch and authenticity, and also recognize that things like AI are probably going to be one of the other members of the buying committee more so than ever before to help distill down all the information that's being thrown at them every day, and both in their professional and personal lives. So that authenticity, I think, is just going to be the most valuable, rather, differentiator for especially in B2B companies, that they can establish that authenticity and that connection, not just with their direct prospective customers, but also the communities and the ecosystems in which those prospects go to find out how they're solving problems.
Honestly, couldn't agree with you more about B2B, but I even think about this a lot with other sectors. I mean, even in things like retail, and that's like, you can get AI to write you an article about 10 different types of t-shirts, but to see someone talk about it is a much different thing than the words and whatever else. But to that end, like, how are you guys helping your clients to cultivate that authenticity?
I mean, it begins again by starting with a perspective of you're talking to the customer and working your way back to the product. And also simplifying the story. I think one of the reasons why a lot of audiences get turned off is that they have to navigate such complexity to get to what it is that they're going to get. What are the outcomes that they're going to achieve by adopting your product versus the other? And of course, everyone recognizes that your number one competitor is not another company that makes something similar to what you do. It's inertia. It's the fear of change. It's what you're already doing today. It's the status quo. So, that's why we like to say what we do is help you stand out so you can rise above the noise of increasingly crowded marketplaces. You have a story that's going to resonate and reach and capture the attention of the audiences you're trying to get. But most importantly, you have a way to break through to them. And that's, again, going to get increasingly harder and harder as all the generation of information coming from AI and potentially the tools on the other end, distilling the information back down and helping shortlist and the like. These are interesting times for sure. And I think as any marketers, you're going to be challenged in ways that you haven't been before. We thrive on this opportunity because we have the chance to sort of marry the two, and we ground everything about being focused and simple and actionable and differentiated in everything we do. And by using those as guiding principles, I think we're able to peel back a lot of layers. That's not to say we don't run into situations where our clients we like to call it, we also have to tell them about it itis, where it's like, hey, we also have to tell them about this. But it's like, hey, it's a long game. You just want to get and capture their attention with the thing that's going to matter most, and then know you'll have more opportunities along the buyer's journey, and hopefully in an authentic way to connect all those different pieces of your story in front of them. Don't bludgeon them to death and be surprised they walk away going, I'm not interested. You got to just capture that attention with that one important thing.
Well, listen, I really appreciate the time that we got to spend today. I think we probably could go a much longer and much deeper about a lot of other things, but we still have big days on this Wednesday afternoon. So thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do it?
You can visit our website at fulcrum.group. You can check us out on LinkedIn, or you can reach out directly to hello@fulcrum.group. And we'd love to hear from you. And Gail, thanks a ton for the opportunity to speak with you today. I really enjoyed it.